The Bay Area, a bucolic land of serenity, glittering waterways and rolling hills, draped with silvery necklaces of steel and concrete highways and bridges, the lacy jewelry of the intricately interconnected state of California. But it is also a brittle veneer floating on a seething sea of tumultuous geologic rage. Its highways, these mighty bands of steel girding this unstable mistress, can, at any moment, be rent asunder, plunging our very way of life into the yawning chasms and molten depths at the Earth's boiling core. Lisa?
The 1989 Loma-Prieta earthquake damaged the eastern span of the Bay Bridge and sent the state on a long saga of determining whether or not to repair or replace the span. In the end, they decided to replace the entire span, but the clock is ticking. When the big one hits, and it will hit, the existing bridge could sustain a lot of damage, and the state's on a race with time to get that new span finished.
Time is really an essential element in terms of our race with seismic safety, to be ahead of any seismic event that we know is coming for the Bay Area.
The latest project associated with the Bay Bridge has been the replacement of a deck section that wasn't earthquake safe, just east of the tunnel on Yerba Buena Island, with a brand new section of deck that was built alongside the old one.
If you had to retrofit this piece in place, then one, it's not as safe because you've got workers out there right next to live traffic, and both are in danger in that situation. The second thing is, with a new section, you're getting much longer life. You're able to get the lifespan of the new bridge by putting in a new piece.
So they come up with this idea, let's build a bridge over here, let's move it in sideways, and now we got a brand new bridge. It's already structurally is taken care of. It was definitely the right way to do it. And we said we could do it in 3 days.
This Labor Day weekend, while the Bay Area turns to beach and barbecue, there will be no picnic for Caltrans. Instead, these workers will labor around the clock to replace this old gray slab with this new gray slab. So, who are these heroes of concrete, steel, sweat, and sinew, and what the heck are they doing exactly?
We could build a new structure here. We could take this structure, pick it up, move it over, and set it down there. And then we could pick the new one up and move it into place and set it down.
The Caltrans designers, Grant Schuster and Mike Cullen, came up with the great idea of building that new section of bridge just south of the existing and then moving it into place. The advantage being it was out of the way of traffic, and that was a lot safer and a lot less risky for both the contractor and for the public.
It took a while to get the city officials and the different businesses to buy into the concept of an actual full closure for a long weekend.
The Labor Day weekend is traditionally one of the lower traffic demand weekends. So we made that decision about 4 months ahead of the actual construction work, rather than spreading the work out over a very long period of time, that we would try to compress the work and accomplish that during a weekend. We, of course, were worried about meeting the schedule. I had pushed hard. My compatriots on the Toll Bridge Program Oversight Committee were a little more leery about the potential for doing this. I asked our people, can we do this? And the answer came back an emphatic yes.
Caltrans is going to be demolishing about a football field-sized portion of the upper deck of the Bay Bridge right in front of the Yerba Buena Island Tunnel. Traffic is going to be taken off the bridge entirely. We're going to put rails on the lower deck of the Bay Bridge and lift in a precast concrete section that we built here on the south side of the island, slide it right into place with about 3 inches of tolerance on each side, and then connect it in and put traffic back on the bridge.
Woohoo!
When I first heard that Caltrans crews and the contractors intended to demolish this section of the bridge and roll in a new deck piece in 3 days and close the Bay Bridge at the same time, I was astounded.
I thought that this was a recipe for disaster. There was no way they were going to finish it in the 3 days that they were hoping to.
It was really going to be a challenging thing to demolish a section of freeway, completely clear all the debris, and then roll a very heavy section into place.
The challenge there was, how do you demolish a bridge which consists of almost 3,000 cubic yards of material and get all the rubble off the bridge in a 3-day period and get the new bridge moved in.
So you're saying the challenging part is absolutely everything you're trying to do.
We had a postage stamp size of land. We had constraints all around us. To the east and west, you had existing on and off ramps. To the north, you had the existing freeway. And to the south, right up against the edge of the new structure we're building, you had a historic Coast Guard building.
This is our first time in doing something like this, and this gives me new ideas in the future where I could put this in play.
The company that ended up being in with C.C. Myers, Mammoet, had done many, many moves before like that. In fact, this size bridge was actually a sort of a small to medium-sized move for them. In fact, to prove that Mammoet was so good at this kind of operation, they moved their own 10-story headquarters into place.
Now, I've heard it mentioned that you began building the bridge before it was designed. Can you, in layman's terms, make that sound any less insane?
Because we already had the construction contractor on board, the designers were able to not only sequence the design, in other words, start parts of the bridge in construction before the design was actually completed, but also to get continuous input from the contractor. They met up to weekly, presenting them with the updated plans, and the contractor gave us a great deal of feedback on potential problems, ways to make the project easier or more efficient.
Labor Day 2006, we ended up closing the lower deck for an entire weekend, which is unheard of, and it went very successfully. Now, going into Labor Day 2007, the cookbook had been written. We knew exactly what was necessary to close the entire bridge now for Labor Day 2007. The media outreach, the command centers that were necessary, the coordinated effort, the CHP, the locals, everything that was necessary to pull together a successful bridge closure had already been set. It was just much bigger.
Most people's general opinion when we first told them that we had to close the bridge was, why does it have to be on the weekend? Why this weekend in particular? And isn't there some other way to do it? So we put together a show and we brought the media in early, months ahead of time, to prove to them, first of all, that there's no other choice. This is the only way that we can do it with a real margin of safety. Better to get this over with than have to find some other way that might delay people for months on end.
My motto and what I tell our people is you can't do enough outreach. And so they just pulled out all the stops.
But then you still had a number of people saying, you know, you're affecting my son's Little League game, or there were actually 4 weddings on Treasure Island that weekend. And we worked with every one of those brides and grooms to make sure that their wedding parties could still make it there.
Caltrans did just about anything I could imagine that they could have done. They were handing out flyers at dry cleaners. They went to the airport, handed out a baggage claim.
We put ads on the radio. We put them in the newspapers. We put television ads in prime time during sweeps week. And we also put ads in movie theaters. And we had to put these things in areas, not just around the bridge, but suburban areas. We actually got local youth to take 700,000 flyers all around this area to what ended up being 200 different cities throughout the state of California. This was the largest public outreach effort in Caltrans history.
We even contacted the University of Tennessee football team that was playing Cal that weekend in Berkeley to let them know that they were going to have to find alternative means to get into San Francisco.
I knew that Tennessee had a big alumni following, and they can travel with up to 15,000 people. So when I contacted Tennessee, they thought it was a practical joke, until I was able to verify who I was and that this was part of a much larger project. And then after that, they really worked with us well. And that's sort of an example of the level that you have to go to take this bridge out of service.
You have a jack in the back of your trunk to change flat tires, but it will take these 14 giant jacks just arrived from Canada to lift up and move the new viaduct for this section of the Bay Bridge. The Bay Bridge will be closed next Friday night at 8 p.m., but the actual dress rehearsal is next Wednesday night, when they will actually lift this brand new section up just a couple of inches to make sure that the system will work for the weekend shutdown. The test won't even be noticed by the public. There will be no bridge or lane closures. But it's important. technically, if that test fails, they could cancel the Labor Day weekend shutdown of the Bay Bridge.
It was Wednesday night before the weekend, and we did a test lift, our first test lift of the structure. We calculated everything, we had our analysis done, we figured out the loading on all the little jacking points. There was 16 points.
And when the jacks were being tested, I was resting, getting ready for this big thing that I was going to do. And so there was supposed to be no media. But a couple of reporters had gotten down into the area and were interviewing the team that was out there.
When you do something, you don't want to do it for the first time when you're on stage. You practice it. And that's exactly what Mammoet and C.C. Myers did prior to that weekend, is they actually lifted it and ensured that they could lift it, and we measured for any kind of stresses on the bridge to make sure that when it came time to actually lift it up and move it into place like we had to, that we had worked all the kinks out.
They were lifting the bridge such that it was bowing up in the center. So they had the center lifted 7 inches, and it was not lifted at the ends. So that was deemed not good, not a failure, but not good. Then we turned around and there was a camera van. So it got to the news, test lift failed.
And we'll be sure to update you as soon as everything else fails.
On my way home that night, Dennis Tershon, my boss, called me and said, hey, I just watched the news, and you guys had a failure. What happened? And I told him there was no failure. Well, Thursday morning when I got to work, it was just a buzz. Every Bay Area news station was on site wanting to know what happened.
I came in to work, and I had already heard on the radio that there was some kind of problem. Why didn't somebody call me? You know, because I'm going to be doing interviews on this.
Thursday morning was just crisis mode. Our public information officer needed answers. He needed someone to go talk to the press and tell them everything's fine.
It was just a matter of getting the hydraulics correct, getting the right amount of pressure to one part of the bridge that was heavier than the other. So I needed to communicate that message, and then they needed to see the test work. And so we set that up, and then we took them down there and let them see that part of the bridge start rising up. And then the story became, oh, they've conquered the challenge of this jack failing.
A third test of the jacks took place Friday morning. It was successful. Now they know with certainty they can lift the 6,500-ton viaduct. They've done it twice. But can they move it from side to side? Can they move 6,500 tons nearly 100 feet in this direction? If they can't, the entire Bay Bridge shutdown would be in vain.
When they put me on camera, I was ecstatic that I could tell them that everything was fine at that point. After that, we're back on track, smooth sailing, no more bad press. Everybody knows we're on top of it, and we moved into the weekend.
The biggest concern going in was, what if something happened and you couldn't complete the operation? If for some reason that piece didn't get put into place, if it fell or something like that, you were not going to have the Bay Bridge for a very long time. And so what the strategy was to just preload all the contingencies.
We had all the backup, extra equipment, there's extra people, there's just really extra everything.
We had all of the emergency plans in place and ready to go should anything go wrong.
There is a command center in place, and that command center is really the focal point or the brain of the entire team between upper management in Caltrans, our partners, the cities, the locals, Highway Patrol. They're all in the command center together.
The command center was the heart of the operation, and I had 2 different teams on the east side and the west side of the bridge managing the whole closure.
They had screens showing various parts of the bridge and a clock that counted down to 0. And 0 was when they closed the bridge, and then it started counting up again.
They had until 5 a.m. Tuesday to get it done and get that bridge reopened to traffic, or every commuter that goes across that bridge was going to be stacked up, lined up, waiting to get across that bridge. It was going to be a commuter and PR nightmare.
For me, it was kind of an eerie feeling to walk out into lane number 3, which is basically in the middle of the bridge, and look both ways and think, wow, 280,000 cars a day, and here I am standing in the middle of the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge with no traffic.
It's just silent out there, eerie silent. So we're looking at each other, where's the massive equipment? Where's this big work? Stopwatch has started. Where is this? And we're just looking at each other, looking around. And all of a sudden we looked down towards Oakland, and here comes flashing lights and an army of trucks. And within minutes, there must have been 24 concrete saws sawing the deck.
And I never seen so many saws in my life in one place at one time. I didn't even know that there's not many saws in the state. I was really impressed how fast they cut that bridge up.
The biggest challenge was actually a demolition, and specifically the logistics of getting the rubble out of the way on such a tight island with such limited access, to get that done on time so that we could do the roll-in and meet our schedule.
This was a very different operation. Unlike previous demolitions where you would just hit it with brute force. You get, 20 hammers and tear it apart.
Being out there and watching the demolition was pretty amazing. It was an orchestrated event with large construction equipment, hacking away at rebar and concrete, but it's orchestrated down to the minute.
It was fun to watch. It was like being a little kid playing in the sandbox with your Tonka toys, but here were these real things, and they were doing this stuff right before your eyes. You couldn't take your eyes off it. It was fascinating. It was just constant, nonstop action.
But in the middle of the operation, when we were doing the demolition, we actually had a helicopter come way too close to the crane that was doing the work. When I saw the helicopter up there and that it was kind of spooking the crane operator, I just called the FAA immediately. And that thing was shooed out of the area and it wasn't a problem anymore.
Demolition didn't quite go as well as hoped. It took a lot longer than they were anticipating. That seemed to be frustrating to C.C. Myers, who's staking his whole reputation on getting this whole thing done, not just on time, but early.
Technically, we're right on schedule, but that doesn't make me happy, because I wanted to be way ahead of schedule, but right now we're right on.
What's holding you up?
Demolition is running way behind.
You start realizing that it's not going as fast. A lot of the contingency time for the demolition portion was starting to get eaten up. So you start getting a little anxiety. It was very contentious out there. You're in the spotlight. You have cameras watching every move out there. So there was people screaming and yelling. The hard hat throwing segment of this weekend.
When they were getting ready to move this huge piece of concrete, it was a slab, 350 feet long, and there's like this much clearance on either edge from the existing road surface, and this thing's moving into place like this, and I'm thinking, okay, well, the first thing I'm gonna hear is this huge scraping sound. It's just gonna be, we're probably gonna have to cover our ears. And it didn't happen. It was very, very quiet.
But by Sunday night, when we were done the demo and we began moving the bridge, I remember taking a look around, and there must have been 100 to 200 people lined up on the outskirts of this bridge watching this thing roll in.
Well, they move it with a set of jacks and a pneumatic machine that will actually advance these jacks on the rail. It gets to a certain point, and then you can lock it in so that it can't move back. It's been likened to watching grass grow, but it actually does move, and while it's difficult to perceive the movement, go away for an hour, come back, and you can see that it's moved several feet.
We moved the bridge to a certain point within 2 inches, and we stopped. Then they're doing their surveying, right, and they're checking the elevations and all this, exactly what they had to do if they would have had to twist it or do anything at all.
And many of us were down underneath the bridge watching this gap, and the gap began to narrow. and went from about 1.5 inches down to about 1/2 inch. And at that point, the bridge moving company was able to manipulate and rotate that bridge 1/2 inch and maintain the 1.5 inch gap. And that was very impressive.
When that thing started moving, I mean, it really started picking up speed.
I was watching this thing move the entire time. I was mesmerized. I had no idea that I could be so involved with a piece of concrete moving.
Once it started moving, it was like it was flowing. It was really quick. It got into position, and you heard like a unison scream that everybody, yay, it happened.
This new bridge gets rolled in, but it's got to sit on these new columns that it's never seen before. There was holes in the deck that we had to drop pins in, exact holes to where these new columns were. If those holes didn't line up, you were in trouble. All the pins dropped in just as planned. All those worries, all the pre-planning paid off.
We anticipate about 3 hours and 15 minutes to move it, right?
And let me guess, big guy, it went faster.
And we moved it in 2 hours and 3 minutes.
Well, there you go.
So that's how smooth it went. I mean, it just went as smooth as could be.
I don't ever think we're home free until the striping's ready to be done. The next morning, after we'd done our reports and everything, I saw that the striping trucks were on their way. Then I really thought, hey, this is going to be a really good news story. I mean, we're almost 12 hours ahead of time.
Never before had a replacement structure been built on site and then slid into place. Improved technology is being credited for that, but Caltrans says none of this work could have been done without the public's cooperation.
It fit like a glove. It was just frankly amazing that they were able to just roll that in, zip up the joints, and traffic flowing on it the very next day.
I had all the confidence in the world. We had plenty of time to do the job, and we would make our schedule, just like what we did at the maze.
C.C. Myers was beatified at the maze, and this was his canonization. He became St. Myers of Assisi. And it's a great story, too. But we wouldn't have been telling it if things had gone south.
And it was interesting working closely with him because he has a presence and iconic status in the media. Sort of the John Wayne of freeway construction right now.
Closing the Bay Bridge over Labor Day weekend didn't create a huge traffic problem. There was a smattering of traffic jams here and there, but it wasn't anything like what people had expected and even what Caltrans had been warning people might happen.
People decided to stay home. People left town. And the people that had to go either to games, events, or had to travel, they used BART.
The public's response to the 3-day Labor Day project was very positive. People definitely felt confident, I think, after it all went well. The bridge reopened on time. The press was positive about it and turned into a good story for Caltrans and the contractor, C.C. Myers.
When I first came to California in 1991, I told someone I worked with Caltrans, and their response was, "We're suing you." And I don't get that anymore. People I talk to, they actually appreciate us. They think we're doing a very good job.
Working on a job like this is definitely not like any ordinary job. You're doing very complicated work, and it's very satisfying when it comes off where it looks simple. But it's been so much planning and the teamwork. There's thousands of people that make this work, and that's very exciting to be part of that.
It's just an amazing feeling that inspires you. All hearts pumping, and it was an amazing energy flowing around the whole team when that happened.
It was a great sense of pride to be at the opening ceremony, and finishing 11 hours early was really just icing on the cake.
It's fun to be able to beat your own projections. And all the workers, they're very proud of doing something like this. You know, this is something they can talk to their families about for years. I worked on that bridge over there, just like some of the guys that worked on the Bay Bridge when they built back in '37. They were very proud to be able to work on that job, be part of that. It's history.
The thing that made it so amazing to Bay Area residents who had been there in 1989 when the Loma Prieta earthquake happened and watched the developments with what are we going to do about this bridge that's not earthquake safe? Are we going to repair it? Are we going to replace it? Are we going to make it a concrete viaduct? Are we going to build a 525-foot suspension tower? And how long are we going to debate this in committee? And how many billions of dollars are we going to spend on this? And how many decades is it going to take to finish it? After all of this agonizing, to have a major component of this bridge replaced in 3 days, it just left people's jaws hanging open.
If you can eliminate the disruption that comes with a long-term construction project and get that work completed over a very short period of time, it is worth the immediate distress of closing down a major facility while you accomplish that work. We know it's effective, and frankly, we're looking at the application of this concept at other locations around the state.
Caltrans and C.C. Meyer's success over Labor Day certainly does renew people's hopes that the new Bay Bridge can open before the big one hits in our race against time. But we shouldn't get too optimistic just yet. 2013, when this bridge is scheduled to open, is a long ways away. We have a lot of challenges ahead.
But as witnessed today, innovation is vanquishing the antiquated limits of yesterday. With each new Caltrans paradigm, construction schedules shrink from years to months to days. And I think we can predict with certain authority that the new Bay Bridge will in fact be completed sometime later tomorrow afternoon, maybe early evening, give or take, and the companion documentary a few minutes after that. So until then, thank you for watching. This has been Max Tabloid reporting. Excuse me, can I get back on camera? I like to conclude my newscast by adjusting my papers. I straighten them and pinch the corners just so. It's a gesture to my audience that I decree the newsday complete. Put me on under those credits. Credits can be over picture. I can be a picture.